let's ask a question from some of our people who write in. Okay, you know what? Hey, Mike, do you love animals, Mike?
Yes, I do.
What are you a dog person or a cat person?
Dog, but I have a cat also.
Yeah, a cat also. Remember the Fockers?
Oh yeah.
Remember, are you a shallow person? Is that what he said? Something like that. You need that, like, reassurance by a dog. So we have an animal case here. Okay, this is a person.
A lot of animal theme tonight.
A lot of animal themes, and I don't know. It's Oregon. This officer is in Oregon. Okay, and look, if you're in Oregon, you love trees and you love animals probably equally. So, and the cop says, it might be a code enforcement officer, which is great too, right? But the officer says, hey, look, is there any relevant case law regarding animal exigency? Right? Animal control observing deceased animals on a property. Are officers able to enter the property to retrieve? So let me just give you some context, right? So here we made the officer made lawful observations from a lawful vantage point.
Okay.
And the officer had probable cause to believe that the defense were committing animal neglect under this Oregon state statute for failing to provide minimal. The statute talks about minimal care for the victim of that crime, and it could be a horse. Okay. For example, and there's also an Oregon case law about victims for purpose of the animal welfare statute include horses, dogs, and so forth, and certainly domestic. That's right, and certainly domestic animals. Most of these statutes about neglect, the highest priority for enforcement is domestic animals, right? Dogs, cats. That's pretty much it. Birds and fish are not domesticated because they don't pet you back. So. The officer believed that the horse was the horse were frail, in serious imminent injury of death, and also believed that it would take at least 4 hours, maybe as long as 8, my friend, to get the horse and so forth to a veterinarian, because that's how far in the boonies they are. Okay.
Oh wow. Okay. Hey, I like the boonies.
Okay. Now, so. What do you think? And that's kind of like from the case as well. But what do you think about this? Do you think that we can go back in people's backyards, maybe into their barn, and actually save animals from this harm?
Yeah. So you said there's that Oregon statute, right? That the animal cruelty. So they got PC with that. But then I think, obviously we're not going back there with just the PC, so we got to look some exigency in there. If you're concerned about the welfare, the health, or the potential well-being of those animals, and like you mentioned the time that it could take there, I'd say there's an exigency there that's going to allow you to go out there and do something about it. Yeah, that's interesting. And so they call them per definition victims, even as
they call them victims. I don't see a lot of statutes use the term victims when they apply to a horse or a dog. Okay. But they talk about, that it can be a felony to harm an animal, and to be grossly
neglectful and
reckless and so forth.
Yeah, just describe your exigency, the articulation that it's emergency aid basically for the horse.
And let's go back to our judges. I kind of mentioned the reality of the situation. I said that, look, there are a lot of judges when it comes to guns that are going to kind of lean towards whatever the cops want to do. They want a knife and a gun, they get the knife and a gun because they hate guns. And they love what? Animals.
Yeah.
So so here's a case called People versus Chung, California Appeals Court, and from 2010. And I'm just gonna give you a little context of what they're saying here. And this is a case that would use to illustrate kind of like there is exigency, right? And they said, other state courts have also held that warrantless entries, searches, and seizures undertaken to protect animals are permissible when there's probable cause to believe that a crime is being committed and warrantless action is necessary to prevent the criminal act from causing further serious injury, right?
There you go. Yeah.
So here's an example, right? Exigent circumstances exception permitted warrantless entry where the officer had probable cause to believe that the crime of animal cruelty was in progress. Absolutely, right? That makes, look, there are plenty of cases where we can enter people's property curtilage to protect it from destruction, fire, putting out fires, preventing burglaries in progress, damage to property. Why can't we protect the Boston Terrier, right? Why can't we protect the horse? The
There you
pig,
go. Yeah.
the pig, I don't know.
Well, if
So-
there's investigating a fire with the pig, you wait long enough, you've got breakfast.
So, hey, let me tell you a story now that since this is a talk show and a podcast, I'm going to tell you. So there was this cop in that worked for NHP, okay? And he just was a phenomenal police officer. And one of the reasons why he was phenomenal is because he was from Georgia and had a legit accent. And he was in Las Vegas. He was in Las Vegas, so you can appreciate that when it comes to Vegas people, we love the culture, right? We need culture in Vegas because otherwise it's a desert that's kind of bland. And he was on a scene where a farming truck overturned a semi truck, and it had all these pigs in it, and the truck caught fire, and some of the pigs caught fire, and he got his shotgun out and started shooting the pigs on I-15 in the middle of the spaghetti bowl in Las Vegas. Thousands of people around. And his sergeant went to him and said, hey, like, really, was that necessary? Because you have all these people around and they see you shooting these pigs. And he says, Sarge, he says, let me get this straight. You're complaining about me shooting the hogs. You don't think you can get a bunch of calls about flaming hogs running around Las Vegas? He called them flaming hogs like it was a restaurant. He's like, you're not going to get calls about flaming hogs? Either way, you're getting called about this situation. Like, either I shoot him or I don't, you're getting called. You know, people are going to be complaining.
I go eat there. And then there actually might be one across the street here over here in Branson. Flaming hogs.
Flaming hogs. Yeah. Anyway.
There's a sight to see.
All right. So we got the animal emergency. There is definitely an exception to the search warrant requirement. That's a recognized exception when you are necessary when it needed to save an animal's life. Before we move on to I think we have a caller on the deck, right, producer Rick? Before we move on to our next caller, I do want to warn officers, though, that simply trying to make sure that the animal is safe, has enough water, and so forth is not good enough. Okay? It's not good enough. So we have cases out there where a neighbor calls in and says, I'm worried about our neighbor's dog. It doesn't seem like it has enough shelter and so forth. And the animal control officer goes back in that person's curtilage just to make sure the dog is okay. That's not good enough. You're going to need agency on that.
Makes sense.